Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us, coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that's Security Gun Club right here in Woodinville, Washington. Here we're going to head back down to the state of New Mexico because, well, the firestorm about the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence does not seem to want to end. And yeah, both sides, those who support what they did and those who actually have read the law, have been lobbing a lot of grenades at each other. And it's been kind of fun to just kind of stand on the sideline, eating some popcorn, watching this all happen while the Carrie Sloans of the world and the President Non-Fuds just absolutely go savage on them. And then we watch the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence going. But we've always done it that way. We've always done it that way. The law never should apply to us. So after watching the pissing contest essentially that's gone on between the two factions here, we decided, maybe we'll take the NFL approach here and go to the instant replay. Let's take a look at everything that really happened, and then let's take a look at what the law actually says, and then we'll let you guys be the judge. So today, let's spend a few minutes and talk about gun violence prevention or domestic terrorists. You be the judge. Okay, so like I said, we're going to go back down to New Mexico. As we know, a town down there decided, hey, they weren't going to do a gun buyback anymore. So then the political action group, New Mexicans Against Gun Violence, said, hey, you know what? We'll just go out and do one ourselves. Now, it's what happened after that has everybody in a big old tissy fit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down, one, the acceptable facts, the facts that we know actually occurred. It's not going to be speculation. It's not going to be anything. Most of these facts are actually going to come from the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence. So we will assume that those are the operable facts. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look at the law as well. So New Mexico, if you are geeking out today, the applicable statutes that we will be talking about in your criminal code include New Mexico Statute Section 30-7-7.1, as well as New Mexico Statute Section 30-7-7.2. We will go through those laws individually in a moment, but first let's talk about the operable facts. The operable facts is that after the town of Farmington decided, we're just not going to do this gun buyback, the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence decided that they would go door to door and start collecting firearms. Why do we know that? Well, because they bragged about it on their social media. They did ultimately collect a number of firearms, and we do not know whether or not they were actually given gift cards or something for consideration, or if these people just willfully gave those guns up. Now, you may think that that is going to be a big deal in this, but when we get to the law, you'll see that that's kind of just, as we call in law school, a red herring. Okay, then after accumulating numerous firearms, the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence got out a bandsaw and chopped them in half. How do we know that? Well, because they posted this photo themselves on their Twitter account. So these facts so far have all come from the group that is in question here. Now, objectively speaking, if we take a look at what the ATF says as to how a firearm needs to be rendered inoperable, we will see that what the ATF recommends, or actually what the ATF mandates, versus what the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence are quite different. It is a haphazard job at best at dismantling or disabling these firearms. These firearms, absolutely positively, by ATF's own definition, were still in a condition which would be deemed operable. Okay, now we've established all of those facts so far. Where do they take all of these firearms, which the ATF would deem to be in an operable condition? Where do they take them? Well, they themselves tell us they took them to a school. That's right. They took them to a New Mexico school so that all of the young people whose brains are being washed there could turn these operable firearms into pieces of art. Okay, now the applicable law. Number one, did an unlawful sale and or transfer of firearms take place when individual citizens then gave their firearms to New Mexicans to prevent gun violence so that they could go out, chop them in half, and then take them to a school? The applicable statute, of course, is Section 30-7-7.1, which reads, unlawful sale of a firearm without a background check consists of the sale of a firearm without conducting a federal instant background check subject to the following. Okay, so a couple of limiting exceptions. What are those? One, if the buyer of a firearm is not a natural person, then each natural person who is authorized by the buyer to possess the firearm after the sale shall undergo a federal instant background check before taking possession of the firearm. Now, I don't know how many people are out there helping round up guns today, but one could presume that it's going to be more than a couple, all right? Did New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence run background checks on every single one of those individuals? They certainly haven't bragged about doing that. There are other quantifications to the law, including a prospective seller who does not hold a current and valid federal firearms licensee issued pursuant to 18 U.S.C. Section 923A shall arrange for a person who does hold that license to conduct the federal instant background check. And again, we didn't hear about them traveling around with any FFLs. Now, that's not the end of the inquiry, because there are some other definitional sections to this statute which we need to examine, including, as used in this section, consideration means anything of value exchanged between the parties to a sale, which means if the New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence offered anything of any value to any of the individuals to take those firearms off their hands, i.e. gift cards or anything like that, that is absolutely positively deemed to be consideration under New Mexican law. The law also states firearm means any weapon that will or is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosion, the frame or receiver of any such weapon, or any firearm muffler or firearm silencer. So again, can be readily converted, and we've already established that the firearm was not properly rendered inoperable according to ATF standards. Now, there is an additional definition that you need to check out, which is this. Sale means the delivery or passing of ownership, possession, or control of a firearm for fee or other consideration, but does not include temporary possession or control of a firearm provided to a customer by the proprietor of a licensed business in the conduct of that business. Now, I know the New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence have been beating on that drum a little bit, saying that's their out here. But you see, the problem is that is a temporary possession. You absolutely positively took permanent possession, because I can assure you that none of the original owners have received those firearms back, and they won't now unless, of course, they are engaged in the act of collecting art. And of course, whoever violates this provision, according to New Mexican law, is guilty of a simple misdemeanor. So I don't think there's any question that the individuals who participated on behalf of the New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence absolutely, positively violated this statute, which once again is New Mexico Statute Section 30-7-7.1. But the news may be even a little worse for you, because now let us pay attention to New Mexico Statute Section 30-7-7.2, which is the unlawful purchase or transfer of a firearm for another. Now, I had an opportunity to go through this statute multiple times. I did not think it first applied, but after geeking out on it a little bit more, hey, the New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence, you guys might be in some serious trouble. Let me show you how this law works. Unlawful purchase or transfer of a firearm for another consists of a person who knowingly purchases, transfers, or conspires to purchase or transfer any firearm for, on behalf of, or at the request or demand of another person, knowing that the other person... Okay, so you are now asking for a transfer of a firearm because you know that the person who's going to receive the firearm is going to do the following. And if you have reason to believe that the person who's receiving the firearm is going to do one of the following, you're in significant trouble under New Mexico law. Those instances are: 1 is a felon. Okay, there's nothing to suggest here that anyone that was working for the New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence was receiving firearm. It was a convicted felon. But pay attention to the next one. 2 intends to use, carry, possess, sell, or otherwise transfer possession of the firearm in furtherance of any felony or misdemeanor involving a firearm. So then, of course, I have to remind you about New Mexico Code R, Section 10.8.2.16, which absolutely, positively, and without a doubt bans the possession of firearms on New Mexico school grounds. Now, the statute that I was citing to, Section 30.7.7.2, specifically stated, intends to use, carry, possess or sell or otherwise transfer possession of the firearm in furtherance of any felony or misdemeanor involving firearms. Does that mean that all of the individuals working for New Mexico to prevent gun violence knew that all the firearms that they accumulated, they would then be delivering them to a school ground? Well, I can only assume that's the case because they have very openly and braggadociously said that this is what they've always been doing. So now you have transfers that are occurring where people are taking possession of firearms, not having undergone the background checks, who know they are then going to go deliver those firearms to school grounds. So, with that entire legal framework in place and the objective facts as given to us in large part by the New Mexicans to prevent gun violence, I ask all of you, are they really truly a gun violence political action group, or are they in fact domestic terrorists? Because I do believe that when we are taking operable firearms to school grounds, knowing that every state and federal law prohibits it, that yeah, that probably constitutes an act of domestic terrorism. Listen, we'll link up everything that we talked about down below in the description box, so if you guys want to geek out on it for yourself, you can do so. I look forward to the reaction of this video and what happens out there in the Twitter sphere as the grenades continue to get lobbed. If you guys got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information, it's right down there in the description box as well. Now, in the meantime, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.